This is HP for Gamers, a podcast designed for gamers, by gamers, to understand how we can maximize our health and performance in the world of esports. We want to provide HP in the form of knowledge to gamers all over the world. Welcome. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of HP for Gamers. And this week it's a little different because we don't have a guest, as you can see. But instead we're going to be chatting together about a topic that we both feel is very important for all the different esports out there that require travel. So your CSGO, your Smash, and eventually Overwatch. And so we want to answer the big question of how do we stay healthy while traveling? And in the light of Season 3 for Overwatch, when all of us will be going to, to our respective hometowns, we want to make sure we introduce a lot of basic concepts that we'll definitely speak a lot more about in our future content, but we want to just introduce to you guys some of these so you guys, hopefully by the time this episode is over, you guys will learn how to better take care of yourselves while traveling for gaming events. So, yeah, I guess to start it off, why don't I ask Cait a question? Basically, I wanted to know, what are some of the common issues that you see about health while traveling?
Oh Lord. All right. There's a bunch, some of which I've personally experienced, some of which I have helped folks out with. I think kind of some of the biggest, most common ones tie into sleep. So like jet lag, sleep deprivation in general, like lack of sleep or sleep interruption, getting dehydrated, getting sick, muscle stiffness, muscle tightness, pain from, being in a cramped position for a long period of time. I guess less commonly, like maybe blood clots. I haven't known too many players to have to deal with that, thankfully. But I'm always overly cautious about it. Mm-hmm. I think the big ones would be like jet lag, sleep interruption, dehydration, depressed immune system, and like that muscle tightness and stiffness.
Totally. And that's quite a few. So let's try to unpack some of those. Let's start with the first thing you mentioned, jet lag. Mm-hmm. How do you deal or handle with jet lag?
So I'm an East Coaster, which means when I travel out the West Coast, life's easy for me because I'll wake up at 6 o'clock West Coast time. I'm about to be like, oh, you've let me lazily sleep in till 9 a.m. This is wonderful.
Yep.
And I come back to the East Coast and it's miserable.
All right.
And I hate everything. And there's a lot of coffee involved that first couple of days. Unless I kind of like do the things I know I need to do in advance. So there's a whole bunch of ways to manage jet lag. And if a team has the budget for it, honestly, the best way to deal with it is just fly out early and get used to the time zone. But that's not an option for everybody, and not everybody has a team that has a budget to do that. A lot of us are just kind of traveling out there for the day, for the weekend, whatever. You can kind of, in your own time zone, as long as if it's like your work or your school schedule, you can start kind of switching your sleeping times to kind of like progress and meet wherever it is you're traveling to. You can try and like set your flights to land around meal times, because one of the really good ways to kind of like reset your body's internal clock is meals and sleep. So if you're landing at a time that's like, it's only 10 o'clock on the East Coast, but it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, perfectly reasonable lunchtime on the West Coast. You land, you immediately eat. You tell your body this is lunchtime, and then 4 or 5 hours later you eat your big dinner meal, whatever your body's used to eating for dinner. You're like, okay, this is dinner time, body, get used to this. It's not going to 100% perfectly fix everything, but it gives your body a really good cue to base things off of.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like the concept of using external cues to help you, make sure that you stick to a certain routine. And I think that's probably the biggest point to emphasize for anyone that's listening. The main goal is that you're flying to another time zone, so your whole day-to-day rhythm is going to change, and we want to do the things or strategies that allow you to change that the most quickly. So Cait already mentioned it a little bit, but sleeping obviously is going to be super important, and we're going to touch a little more about sleep deprivation and how you can have better sleep. But like she said, we got to, if you can and if you can manage it, you can switch time zones a couple days prior. But what I always like to recommend to some of the teams or the players that I work with is that you need to use light, and you need to use melatonin and kind of your body's physiology to help you change that circadian rhythm a lot faster. And the way that I suggest doing that is, hey, the moment you get in the next morning, let's say you get in at night, you want to you can try to sleep naturally, or you can utilize something like melatonin that gets naturally produced when you're about to sleep, and it can help you get a little more drowsy. So then it will reset when your melatonin gets produced so you can fall asleep more easily. And then secondly, if you get there early in the morning or when you wake up, you want to immediately get sunlight, because that's what stops the production of melatonin and helps you reset your circadian rhythm, which is supposedly roughly around 25 hours based on something I just recently read.
Yeah, and that's really good. Like sun's the biggest external cue of all. Yep. And obviously, like, not all the time you're going to have the sun available to you. You know, depending on where you're traveling, it might be rainy, it might be overcast. Any amount of outside, exposure to UV light is good. But something else you can consider using is like an artificial light source that mimics sunrise times. So, like at home, I have a smart bulb that over the course of the day progresses to have less red light, more blue light. To match what your circadian rhythm is meant to be, to match what like regular sunrise and sunset cycles are. And it also, when my alarm goes off, it gradually brightens in a way that mimics a sunrise, and it's kind of a really good external cue for your body to recognize.
So we all need those light bulbs in our house.
Yep. And doesn't just have to go off over your head.
Exactly. I guess in addition to that, there's apps and things on our PC that we can install, like Flux, that help to. Flux is
great for that.
Yeah, exactly. It helps to modify the grading of the screen so that it's not as much blue light going into the later hours of the day, so that, again, you're not trying to prevent the production of melatonin, which is why, it really fits into what we want to talk about next, about sleep and how, screen time can really interrupt sleep. But in general, how sleep gets interrupted a lot when we travel. So, definitely. I mean, how do you make sure that you have better sleep when you're traveling?
Honestly, the best way for me to do it is just to have a consistent habit. Again, we're using those external cues to kind of clue our body into, this is the thing you're supposed to do now. This is the thing you're supposed to feel now. And I mean, we do that with all kinds of other things, not just sleep. We have, athletes have warm-up routines that aren't just for physiology, but they're also, a psychological pump up. You put on that music, you do that certain amount of warm-up sets, and that kind of clues your body into, okay, this is the time where we do badass shit. You kind of you can do something similar for sleep. You can have yourself with this good sleep hygiene, is what you and I refer to it as. That idea of kind of setting up your space and yourself to be like in a calm and quiet and relaxed atmosphere.
Exactly.
So for me, my sleep routine is about an hour before bedtime, screens go off, just to avoid kind of that extra light stimulation. I have the particular order that I do, like, my getting cleaned up, from, whatever, like a little bit of messes around the house. I do like a little bit of organization. I go and do like, personal hygiene and stuff. Then I go and read a little bit. I write in my journal a little bit, and then lights go out and I go to bed. And that's kind of my body. Oh, I do my stretch routine too. I do my stretching, then my journaling. And those are all kind of cues to my body of, okay, we're winding down. Now we're progressing towards sleep. Each of these things lead us further down the path to sleep. And your nighttime routine might not look like mine. It might not be, screens off, clean up, clean self, stretch, read, diary. But like, that's the routine that works for me. And if there's something you want to pull from there, go for it. But I'm sure like you have a nighttime routine that works for you too. And it's probably not the same as mine.
Yeah. I mean, mine is pretty similar because we're both PTs, but
there's that.
Similarly, I do definitely stop looking at screens 1 hour before. I do my stretches right after, and then I read. I don't have a journal, but I think that's a great idea for anyone. And then I do some meditation. I really like to wind down using Headspace, the sleep packages that they have, or just doing my own meditation to really help myself wind down and, again, give myself that external cue of just, hey, it's time to relax, it's time to sleep. And really, sometimes if I have maybe a very strenuous schedule, or especially when I'm traveling, I will use melatonin, and I take it in much smaller doses actually than what's suggested by, every bottle out there. It's like 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 2.5 milligrams. Microdosing actually with melatonin has been shown to be much more effective because it really simulates how our brain steadily produces it. It's not like our brain just explodes with melatonin. Yeah. So I think sometimes when people overdose too, it causes, at least in some of the research that I've read, that it can cause nighttime awakenings and reduce your REM cycle during your sleep cycle. So so I guess to review, my routine is I stop looking at screens an hour before I sleep, and if I am traveling, I'll probably take some melatonin, and then I stretch, I read, I meditate, wash up, and then get into bed.
I do want to get back to those REM cycles because that's really important, but something that might be useful for folks too. I know when I first started looking at taking melatonin while traveling, I was really worried that, like, do I need to have like 8 hours set aside, or am I going to wake up groggy if I don't have at least 8 hours available to me to sleep? And yes, if you can give yourself that amount of time, it's certainly better. But you don't have to have, 8 hours of uninterrupted available time in order for melatonin to be useful or helpful for you, especially if you're doing microdosing like Matt mentioned.
Right.
But yeah, you mentioned REM cycles, and that part's really important too. Because the same way that we have like this kind of macro circadian rhythm of like about 25 hours is how your body feels a day goes. When we're sleeping, we also have these REM cycles. So cycles of progressing through different levels of sleep, different levels of brainwave activity, progressing down from kind of level 1 all the way into level 5. And level 5 is what we all consider to be REM sleep. That part there, that's that really deep and restorative sleep that we're all trying to get to. So that's great, and that's really important. And that takes about 45 minutes to get all the way down and about 45 minutes to get all the way up. So about a full cycle from lightest sleep to deepest sleep to lightest sleep again is about an hour and a half. So if you're in a situation where you've got a bit of a time crunch and you've only got, 6 hours available to you, or you've only got 7 hours available to you, trying to set your alarm so that you're waking up on some interval of that hour and a half. So sleeping for 6 hours or 7.5 hours as opposed to like 7 hours, you're more likely to be waking up at the lightest sleep phase of that REM cycle. Because waking up in those deeper levels of sleep leaves you feeling groggy and kind of not fully awake. It's when you take that, like, go to take a power nap in the middle of the afternoon and you somehow wake up more tired than you were when you started napping.
Yep. It's not really a power nap for those people though. It's power sleep.
Yes, but I also I swear by caffeine naps, which are my go-to thing when I'm traveling, and I don't want to I need some amount of sleep because I'm just exhausted. Maybe I did a bad job getting enough sleep before I traveled, but I don't want to completely ruin my circadian rhythm. I want to get to sleep at a good time that night, at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Drink a cup of coffee, immediately lay down for a nap, 20 to 30 minutes. Set my alarm to wake up in 20 to 30 minutes. It's not so deep that I'm going all the way into REM sleep, but it's a little bit of rest. And then by the time I'm waking up from the nap, the caffeine is actually in my system and working. So then I've got the boost of a little bit of sleep plus a little bit of caffeine. And that's usually enough to get me to power through until, regular, normal, reasonable bedtime.
Totally.
So that's really useful. So some of the stuff we discussed for sleep, having that kind of those sleep habits, like a routine that works for you, using your circadian rhythms to your advantage, taking melatonin if you need to take it, and planning the timing of your sleep in terms of when you're going to wake up and how many hours you are sleeping.
Yeah.
Because it's not just that more is better, it's more within a certain amount of time is better.
Right, exactly. I think another thing a lot of people don't realize, and I know you do this, is that we try to exercise in the morning. I think it's a really important part. Again, Absolutely. It's an external cue because we always exercise regularly in the morning. And one, if you do a pretty strenuous exercise like a high intensity interval training, or you do a strenuous run, your body's going to need that recovery. So you're going to have way better sleep than if you didn't exercise in the morning. So again, another great strategy for you guys, if you guys are traveling, make some time in the morning to do some exercise, 20 to 30 minutes of running or a couple exercises, as long as you're breaking a sweat, it can be super helpful going to the end of the day and allowing you to get some better sleep.
Yeah, and if running isn't your thing, it doesn't have to be running. It's anything that gets your heart pumping and your body moving. So it could be like, a 20-minute yoga sequence. It could be like a series of body weight exercises of like planks and push-ups and squats. It can be stuff you can do in a hotel room. It could be stuff you do in a hotel gym.
Definitely.
It could be like if you have a whole bunch of friends that you love climbing with, like find a rock climbing gym, go rock climbing first thing.
Exactly.
That
Like
seems
me.
that seems to be a big thing in esports. People love rock climbing.
I know.
Look, whatever
I started it.
Moving, do the thing that makes you move.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I love exercise, and maybe we should create like a hotel gym routine or just a random travel routine.
Yeah,
we'll be posting one of those things up in the near future for you guys.
I have like 2 go-to hotel room routines because I got the last place I stayed. The hotel gym was like this tiny little closet with like 3 machines and like 4 sets of free weights, and I was like, I feel claustrophobic in here. I'm gonna go work out in my room instead.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you gotta just make do with what you have, and you can always get a nice calisthenic workout.
Absolutely.
If you know what to do.
You don't need any equipment to get a good workout.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, we touched on a lot of really great strategies to handle jet lag, but also to handle sleep. And there's so much more to tackle with sleep, especially with all the sleep cycles. I just read today, actually, the second stage of sleep is if you get enough second stage sleep, it helps with motor performance. Just a really random thing that I read.
Really cool.
Yeah, so that's what I think, 20 to 30 minutes into your sleep.
Okay.
But if you get enough, there was a study done, I think in 2005, but they tested it, and it just showed that enough stage 2 sleep improves motor skills, which is why a nap would be awesome.
Yeah.
Would be really awesome, especially in a tournament environment. So
absolutely.
That in addition to the caffeine nap, that can help with some performance in addition to just helping you guys out with your health. So
yeah. It's also like it's I don't know, it's kind of a nice like mental reset, and it's not you may not be able to get all the way to sleep. It may be that in the middle of a tournament things are too high stress for you to go all the way to sleep and take a nap and wake back up and be ready to play again. And that's one of those times when meditation can be really helpful because it does give your brain kind of that quiet, low-level activity. And there's this kind of common misconception that meditation is clearing your mind and thinking about nothing, which like if you try to clear your mind and think about nothing, you're going to be thinking about everything. It's like the line in Inception, I'm telling you not to think about elephants. What are you thinking about? Elephants.
Exactly.
If you're trying to think about nothing, it's not going to work. So there's guided meditation apps where there's something your brain focuses on that's quiet and steady. For me, meditation works really well when I'm moving. I meditate best by walking or running or doing something with my hands that lets me focus on just that one very precise activity. And for those of us who are kind of on that ADD spectrum, it can be really helpful to have something to do with your hands to fidget with while you're trying to get your brain to go quiet. So using that kind of those times when you need that mental break, that mental reset, it leaves you in a lower state of anxiety. It leaves you in a better state to play.
Yeah.
I'm not apologizing for this pun, and you can't make me, but I think we've exhausted the topic of sleep.
Oh, nice one. Very nice. Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about.
I think we were talking about dehydration next.
Yeah.
Which I guess ties to the airline travel a little bit. And I mean, I was really excited this year to see that Genesis had on-site like water filter
I know.
The coolers,
Shout out
like you have
to
at the office.
Genesis. Great job, guys.
A lot of us you don't really realize just how much you need that hydration until all of a sudden you're lacking it. It's really easy to kind of just slip up on in the hustle and bustle of traveling and competing and so many other things to focus on. So how do we make sure we stay hydrated? What do we need to know about staying hydrated?
I mean, number one, I love having my hydro flask with me. That's one way I always stay hydrated, especially when I'm traveling. And yeah, I mean, especially during a tournament like Genesis did, if they have readily available water and it's on the way to wherever you need to play, it's definitely a good idea to go grab a cup or take the 5 seconds that it'll take to walk over there and get a little bit of water. There's so many of us that don't realize how much water we need every single day, especially when we travel. We don't really drink water when we travel. We're sitting in a plane, sitting in a bus, sitting in a car for God knows how many hours, and there's no way that all of us are always drinking water consistently. So we need to make sure we stay consistently hydrated, because water.
Sometimes people aren't drinking on purpose because, like, dude, getting up and down to the bathroom on a plane is really inconvenient.
True.
Like, it's you're damaging your body so much by not drinking that water that it is really worth the inconvenience or the annoying of your seatmates to get up and use the bathroom because you've been drinking water. I know one of the things that's really easy to do is when, like, the cart comes around and they're offering you beverages, even if you're not thirsty at that moment, just ask for one of the bottles of water from them. That way you don't have to leave your tray up. You can just tuck it away wherever, and then it's in front of you for you to keep drinking. So I've noticed the same thing you have. When I don't have my water bottle in front of me, I do so much worse with hydration.
Yep.
Just having it in that line of sight makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think if you really actually start drinking a lot more water, you really notice a big difference. I mean, the moment I got my Hydro Flask and the moment I made it conscious to drink a lot more water, I honestly felt more energized. And one thing that I always like to recommend too is first thing in the morning, drink a 20 to 24 ounce glass of water, and that can make a huge difference, because overnight you're gradually losing some water, so you want to make sure you rehydrate instantly when you start your day.
Expectations of fatigue as well. So if you're feeling tired, it's not always just the sleep component. Sometimes it's your nutrition or your hydration that you need to check in on. So, like, before you go, try and take a nap at a really inconvenient time, like, think about when was the last time I ate something, and that wasn't just whatever was the closest candy available, because Lord knows I've done the vending machine lunch at tournaments. And when was the last time I drank a full glass of water?
Yeah.
And it doesn't just have to be water either, because for two reasons. One is, look, water gets boring. It tastes like nothing. It is just water. Like, adding something to your water is totally fine, like those Mios or Crystal Light or Noon tablets, which are my favorite because they've got they're not super sweet, and they've got electrolytes in them as well, so like a little bit of sodium, potassium, magnesium. 'Cause that's another component of your dehydration. It's not just about the loss of water, it's about the loss of electrolytes, and your body needs that for balance, for motor performance, for brain function, for heart function. And so if you're depleting all of those things in addition to your water supply, you're going to be feeling it, and you're going to be feeling tired and probably grumpy.
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't realize that, how important water is to all the bodily functions and all the systems of our body. And we always chalk it up to, hey, I didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I didn't eat enough. I mean, and even so, when players that we've worked with, when they travel, they also don't eat enough. That's course. True. That's also very true. Or maybe they don't exercise, right? There's all these things that they might not have optimized for. But I think the thing, exactly. I think the thing that they think about least is definitely, did I drink enough water? And that's something so easy. It's such a low-hanging fruit for you to address. If you bring a water bottle, if you go to the water station and just grab a couple of cups of water every couple hours, hey, you'll definitely notice the difference. So.
And bonus points if you bring your own, like, refillable water bottle and, save the environment and all that. Also a good thing.
Exactly.
But, I may anger some environmental activists with this one. But look, if the option is between you not drinking water at all and the option of you drinking a plastic, bottled, mass-produced water, drink the damn water.
Exactly.
I don't care as much.
Yep. Just be healthy and stay hydrated.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
but seriously, like a water bottle you can carry with you and refill constantly is like under $10. It's really not that hard. Plus, I think a lot of like tournaments and conferences give those out as like free swag now.
Really,
if somebody's giving you free swag water bottles, you take that shit, you fill it with water, and you drink it.
Exactly. So I guess
we talked about a whole bunch of systems that are hit by dehydration, and that does kind of segue really well into the next thing we wanted to touch on, which was immune function. Water definitely plays a role there. Sleep plays a role there. Exercise plays a role there. How like kind of all of those things interacting? What does that do to your immune system? And kind of how does that lead to you getting, land flu or conifront or whatever the punnily named,
exactly.
sickness is
The combination of maybe not enough sleep, maybe not as much exercise, maybe not having as much water, or feeding yourself the right balance of nutrition so that you stay healthy can lead to having a depressed or reduced functioning immune system. That means you might have a higher chance of getting this land flu, getting this sickness at a Smash tournament, or even for those playing CSGO, if you travel overseas, you have a higher likelihood of acquiring something that's more local, a local flu or a local
right, something your body's unfamiliar with, something it doesn't inoculate against.
And
unrelated, get vaccinated.
Exactly. And there's a lot of basically everything that we mentioned help you maintain that immune system to allow yourself to really prevent yourself from catching some of these things, but also staying healthy so that you can really play your best. I mean,
it's not just about avoiding illness, it's about like being at peak function. And I know there's like a lot of people are all about taking the airborne or the extra vitamin C. The thing about vitamin C supplementation is that it doesn't make up for like other shitty habits. Like if you're getting not enough sleep, not enough hydration, you're not exercising, but you take vitamin C, you're still going to get sick. It's not going to work that well. It's not that magical. It's not like, impenetrable armor and germs can't pass through. It gives your immune system a small boost, but it's not like a magic bullet to fix your problem. If you're doing most of these things on a consistent basis, you're doing a reasonably good job with your water, you're getting pretty much enough sleep, you're doing some amount of exercise, and you add in the vitamin C, that's when you might see some effect from the vitamin C in terms of a boost in your immune function, a decreased likelihood of getting sick. But it can't make up for a complete lack of all the other things. You really kind of have to have like the bases of that pyramid before you're building anything on top of it.
Totally. Is there anything else that you do to help with your immune system aside from, the sleep, the water, the exercise, everything else?
I worked at a hospital for 4 years. That was pretty great for making my immune system fantastic.
All right. Okay, so everyone go work at a hospital. Go volunteer.
So doing things that reduce your germ exposure is always a good option. Taking a hand sanitizer with you.
That's a good one.
Frequently. Limiting your interaction with other folks. Not in the sense of like don't hug your friends or anything, but like, if you're gonna play, 20 friendlies over the course of a tournament, fist bump instead of handshake, elbow bump instead of handshake.
Yeah.
You're still showing respect. You're still being a good competitor. You're still not being an asshole, but you just you're slightly less likely to exchange germs that way. Also keep in mind that it's not just about your hand hygiene. It's whole body hygiene. So that means frequent showering every single day. Even if you're not sweaty, even if you don't smell bad at the end of the day, take a shower anyway. You've been exposed to a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of germs.
Yep.
And also like keeping your clothes clean. That's another big way. That's, you're brushing up against people, you're walking through things. And so having a full change of clothes every single day, or, even just doing the scrub it in the hotel room sink kind of deal.
Yeah.
That's decreasing your exposure.
I think something else too, right? A lot of people when they travel, they share rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's viable, get your own room, so you don't have to split with 10 people and sleep on the ground. I mean, and I get it, sometimes you just got to do that. But hey, if you do everything else that we mentioned, you try to get better sleep in that situation, you exercise, you drink a lot of water, you eat what you need to eat, that can help at least prevent as much as possible you acquiring any sort of sickness. But
and also keep in mind that it might be useful to wipe down your equipment too. Like if you've got a controller, a bunch of people are going to handle it. If it's going to, if somebody's going to mod it for you, even if just like somebody else unplugs it for you, you're not saying, I think you're dirty and disgusting and I don't want you touching my controller to like wipe down your controller real quick. It's just you're reducing germ exposure.
Yeah, I think another thing too is I've definitely seen people wear masks. It's not only if you're sick, you can also prevent getting sick. Just wear a mask.
Yep.
And sometimes they're pretty fashionable too, so it's cool.
I mean, who wouldn't want half a panda bear on their face?
Exactly.
Panda Global should like sell individually branded like basically, no health and safety mask, but with the panda on them.
All right.
That's a
Credit
great idea.
us,
Welcome.
guys. Oh man. Yeah. So man, that's obviously super important. And
Yeah.
like we said, exercise is one of the biggest things that we like to suggest to ensure that our immune system stays a little more healthy. And I think that segues us into the conversation of, hey, when we're traveling, we're stuck in these small spaces, we're stuck on a bus, we're stuck on a car, and a lot of things happen when we're not moving for the 6 to 8 hours or many hours, and that is muscle tightness. We're not moving. So what are some of the things you do to help make sure that we stay, a little more mobile, but also address any of the tightness that happens when we expectedly sit in whatever medium for X amount of hours?
Right. You're going to be tight. You're going to be sore. Things get stiff. You'll notice a lot of times people notice that when they wake up in the morning, that's when they feel stiffest, especially in their back. That's not surprising because you've just spent, hopefully 6 to 8 hours, lying horizontally with, you're not putting as much pressure through your discs. You don't have gravity acting on you vertically speaking, from the head down to the tailbone, compressing those discs. So that's when they're most full of fluid. It's when they're most full and stiff. That's like kind of best case scenario in terms of stiffness, that you're just a little bit tight from sleeping and you do a little moving around and you're better. But sitting for hours on a plane, even absent the risk of getting a blood clot, you're not bending and straightening repeatedly. You're kind of getting some stagnant blood flow. Your muscles are staying in the same position, and it's probably not like an optimal resting length. So to any extent that you can, moving is a good thing. And that doesn't mean that you have to be like the annoying seatmate who constantly fidgets. It doesn't mean that you have to be up and down every 5 minutes. But doing like small little things to just keep your blood pumping, to keep yourself moving a little bit when you're on a plane, for example. So doing ankle pumps, pumping your feet up and down, that has the added side effect of doing a really good job of returning blood flow from your lower body. So it's not pooling in your calves and your ankles and increasing your risk of getting blood clots.
I did them as you said that. So
I have a rocker board underneath my desk that I do them on, also because I'm short and I need something under my feet where my feet don't touch the ground. You can do just like squeezing and relaxing, like contracting and relaxing various muscle groups. I'll do that like with my quads, I'll do that with my glutes, I'll do that with my abs, kind of just like working from the bottom up, do a set of 10 squeezes on everything every so often while I'm sitting in the chair. It also reduces my urge to fidget, which, annoys the shit out of my seatmates when I'm doing it. That being said, like, don't be an asshole, but there's nothing wrong with moving a bit. It's good for you. It's safe for you, and they should be doing it anyway, so they might as well join you.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm the guy that always, at least when I go to the bathroom, I just stay near the bathroom and I stretch. I stretch my quads, I stretch my calves, I stretch my mid back. I use the side of the plane and just stretch out my mid back, just because I want to undo the stress of sitting for the 10 hours, well, probably 6 hours of me watching a movie and then 4 hours of me sleeping after that. And then I'm sitting in this really rounded position and I need to open back up because a lot of things tend to stiffen up. Just like when we're sitting and playing for long periods of time on a computer, we want to undo that stress of being in a closed position. So really in the same way that you guys can think of everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, and this applies to travel, what we're doing is just sitting. We need to realize what it does to our bodies. We're a sum of all the postures and positions that we assume throughout the day. So during a trip, when we're just sitting, we're going to be stiff in that position. So we need to do the opposite. We need to move a lot. We need to stretch in the opposite way. And I'm sure we both have sort of go-to routines and exercises that we do to help to undo the stress. But why don't you tell me some of your go-to exercises? Yeah.
All right. So if I had to pick like 3, because I can't pick one. I can't pick a favorite book and I can't pick a favorite stretch, like ever.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Generally speaking, like I want things that are opening me up. So opening across the hips, opening across the chest, causing extension and expansion. So I really love a good hip flexor stretch where you're kind of standing in a lunge position and you're just pushing that back and forward a bit. Which actually, let me scoot back a little bit. I'll demo it.
Yep.
So if you're watching the podcast, you'll get to see this. It's just here. Also, don't you love my pajama pants? They're great. From the side view, It's just a lunge and a lean forward. Opens up your hips really well. You can, so that's one of my favorites. Hold it for 30 to 60 seconds. And as Matt and I have discussed, you hold a stretch for 30 to 60 seconds because your muscles have those fibers in them that tell them, oh no, I'm being stretched too much. You have to calm them down and tell them, no, you're not. Hold still, damn it. So 30 to 60 seconds every stretch. I like hip flexor stretches. I like piriformis stretches, which is sitting in a figure 4 position and pushing down gently on that knee that is crossed. That's for kind of your butt and your glutes area. It's your piriformis is a muscle that goes across your butt, basically. And for those of us who sit a lot, it's really easy for that muscle to get tight.
Totally.
And then the last one that I really like is I really like, in PT we call them no monies, because it looks like you're reaching your hands into your pockets and taking them out and saying you got no money.
Nice. I didn't know it was called that.
Our clinic calls them no monies.
I call them what up. What up?
It's just like an East Coast, West Coast thing. They're
maybe. I mean, I think that's just what I call it. I don't think anyone else has ever called it that, but it's like, what up?
Yep.
Hey.
So it's palms facing up, elbows right at your side. You're pushing your chest forward and pulling your shoulders back as you turn your hands out. And for me, I couple that with a breath. So I breathe in as I open, I breathe out as I close. So it's...
Yep.
So
Exactly.
breathe in and open, breathe out and close. And I'll just do like 5 to 10 of those. More than that, and I get like sweating and dizzy. But 5 to 10 is like... it's enough for you to get a little bit of a mental reset, because that slow, deep breathing is really good for calming down the rush of anxiety. And then the exercise itself is really good for opening up the chest and engaging the upper back, kind of waking those muscles back up, and then stretching out the tight stuff here.
Yeah, I really like those. The piriformis, the hip flexor, and your what up?
No monies.
No, you're no monies. You're no monies.
All right, so
I guess for me,
we should definitely post these too.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep these and leave them in the show notes for anyone that wants to reference. But
what's your 3?
Yeah, for my 3, I mean, I definitely always do a hip flexor stretch as well, and it's pretty much the same one. I like to add like an overhand reach for the same side, just to get a little more extension. But my 2 other favorites are a floor to ceiling, and I like to try to incorporate a bunch of other things with it. But again, we'll leave all this in the show notes. I'm gonna try to describe it. But I stand up, I reach towards the floor while bracing my abdomen, and then I hold it for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then I slowly, it's almost like a Jefferson curl, all the way back up, reach towards the ceiling, and then I try to get taller. You know, this is something that I try to do every single day because I'm not that tall. So as a part of the exercise, I try to gain extra height. It never really works, but if I feel pretty good afterwards, and I do, 10 to 12 repetitions of that. And then I like to also do again, another opening exercise that I just call the bent over twist, and it just involves me kind of spreading my legs out a little bit, leaning over, and then having one arm on the ground and twisting my torso, reaching up towards the ceiling. I know it's probably hard for a lot of you guys to visualize, but again, we'll leave all of this in the show notes so that it makes sense to you guys, and you guys can incorporate this into your sort of post airplane, or maybe right when you get to your hotel sort of exercise routine, or even maybe when you get back home from your tournament, you can do this as well, because these all function to do the same thing. It really functions to undo the stress of sitting in this rounded position. So when you're sitting and playing in front of a setup for Smash, or when you're sitting in front of on a stage for CSGO playing, or Overwatch, or whatever, you are in that rounded and closed position. So these exercises will all help to undo that. And we've definitely posted a couple other routines that have the same effect, an anti-sitting routine, full body routine, a bunch of other things in our loot boxes. But yeah, I mean, obviously as PTs, we're the most passionate about this topic. But I mean, we went over so much today. We went over jet lag, we went over sleep, we went over dehydration, immune system, and then most importantly of all, as PTs, tightness. I know you traveled recently, and
I did.
I think you went to GDC.
I did.
So,
I went and I talked a bit about like how game developers can use health and wellness to kind of develop a community and promote player and investment and retention. And kind of like the sum of it was that you can develop a community that considers health and wellness to be part of its core identity, and a community having a unique core identity, a thing that makes an us, is really key to a games community thriving.
Totally.
And I think I may have been the first person to ever reference Melty Blood at a GDC. And it was because, so like the Melty Blood community, Melty Blood is an anime fighting game. They're a unique group, and one of the things they are known for is they can and will play anywhere, anytime. And when I say anywhere, I mean they play in parking lots, they play in bathtubs, they play in bathrooms, they play in hallways. If there's a space to play, they're going to play there. It's going to happen.
All right.
And like that is a key
I respect
part
it.
of their identity. Like we are adaptive, we are flexible, we're going to make this work. And heck, the weirder the place we can play it, the better. This is more awesome. What's the next weirdest thing we can do? You see similar things like the FitFGC movement. You see things like the Marvel community, who managed to keep their game alive when like they were at a point where there was literally a finite number of copy of their games in the world, and those discs were gradually going to fail eventually.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to reach a point where there were no more discs that they could play Marvel off of, and it was thought that the game would just die if that happened.
Mm-hmm.
They kept this community alive because they loved their game, and they were like invested in each other. They had this sense of commitment to like, we're going to make this work. We're going to find a way to keep this functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And then Marvel vs. Capcom Infinity came out, and it wasn't exactly what everybody hoped for, but it was, it was still something. It was, the game's not dead yet.
Right.
We're still here.
Right.
So there's this sense of resiliency about that community. That's part of their identity. And so having that kind of identity concept, something that makes you feel an us, is really, really key to any community. And that goes for game developers as much as that goes for teams.
Mm-hmm. I mean, totally. I think community is everything.
Yeah.
Really, it's everything in gaming and in esports.
Yeah.
From the pro to casual community, right? If a game developer doesn't listen to one, the other community might be mad, but really holistically, you need to listen to both to grow different parts of your game, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, there's going to be casual players. Yes, there's going to be pro players. But what's the point in trying to favor one when you can really build both? As game developers, or I mean, it might not be the decisions of the game developers, but in general, as a game title, you should be cultivating both communities so that your game continues to grow on all fronts. And hey, I mean, it could definitely be a resource thing.
Obviously, not every game has to be an esport or anything.
Right.
Even in something like Guild Wars 2, which is one of the games I play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I know the devs merely make an effort for the content to be balanced in a way that doesn't alienate the PvP players while also not alienating the PvE players. Making it so that the world is interesting and interactive, and your class of character isn't going to like auto die to a world boss, but be like super duper overpowered in PvP play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't envy game developers that task, that balancing act. But one of the things that you can do to make that community want to stick around and want to stay with you is give some degree of investment in their health. Be that through posting resources for them, doing in-game reminders, tooltips, toast text, things on save and load screens.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of ways to kind of unobtrusively slip that investment into player health and wellness in there, and make that part of your community identity, which then gives your community something to hang on to, even when they're arguing so-and-so in such a way, which I am currently very much reminded of given the Smash Ultimate patch notes that came out
exactly. Oh man, I mean, definitely in addition to just making the players or people in the community feel like they're cared about with this type of content, it also keeps them healthy, right? So that they can come back and continue to play the game that they fell in love with or that they want to grind and become the best at. So I mean, and there's really so much opportunity in for us even to work with a lot of these game titles to have game specific content too, right? If it's Guild Wars, it can be a character doing some stretches so that it's really more relatable to the actual person playing. I mean, whether it be Overwatch or Fortnite or whatever game, they can really utilize I guess, professionals like ourselves to include some of these things, because hey, wrist pain and all these other health issues are such a big thing in these competitive communities that limit them from playing and limit the people that all these casual players follow as their streamers. It limits them from playing and be able to stream. So if they do it from the game title or game dev perspective, then it might be a really great way to help the consciousness of the community understand a little more about just taking care of themselves.
And I think for me, the really important thing with that, with, bringing in healthcare professionals to kind of, help make game specific content, things that fit your game, make sure you're hiring somebody who actually plays your game, like has some idea of and some investment into your community. Because for one thing, gamers are, we're as a general rule, understandably and justifiably skeptical of non-endemics coming in and being like, do things this way.
Right.
Like, we've got this issue in healthcare with players who've gone to doctors. The doctor's been like, oh, just stop playing video games.
Oh, man.
That doesn't fix the underlying problem. If you're bringing in a healthcare professional kind of to work with your community, to develop resources for your community, they should know what your community's concerns actually are. And if they don't know, they should be invested in learning and figuring that out. That might mean knowing a decent amount about the controller that most players use. It might mean knowing what control schemes are most frequently used. It might mean knowing, what button patterns are most frequently pressed. I'm thinking here of, wave dashing.
Right.
If you're doing shine double shines, what is the pattern that you're doing? How much are you doing it?
I really think that's the fun of it, though, right? That's the fun of being a healthcare professional in this space, and that we get to figure out these unique patterns of movement that lead to some issues.
If you hire a healthcare professional and they don't geek the fuck out about this, if they don't think this is really cool shit, they're the wrong healthcare professional for you. They should geek the fuck out about this.
Exactly.
Because it's really fucking
Exactly. I mean, I love learning and figuring out how specific movements in game really transition into pain patterns that I see. Like, hey, CSGO has this really common pain pattern that I see, or hey, we have the fox fingers or falcon thumb that we've noticed in Smash, right? It's awesome that we can help this space out by identifying these things. So I know we touched a lot about that stuff. We can probably touch a lot more on that in future episodes, but maybe we can just wrap up really quickly. Today we talked about how we can help you stay healthy as you're traveling, and we address things like jet lag, dehydration, sleep, immune system, and your muscles being tightened. Really, the common thing with a lot of those are you need to, one, have a nice routine for yourself so that you have a regular rhythm throughout the day, and two, you need to be exercising regularly. You can use a lot of additional things on the side, like melatonin, vitamin D, light therapy, meditation, and a bunch of external cues to help maintain this day-to-day rhythm. But essentially, you do have to have all these basic habits that help you stay more healthy, help boost your immune system, help keep you hydrated, like drinking water, that is going to keep you, one, completely healthy and not get sick when you're traveling overseas or to another coast, and two, perform, right? Because you're there to win. You're there not to have to worry. Exactly. You're not there to have to worry about, oh man, I'm a little sick, and now I have to take care of myself. If you do these things ahead of time, then you're going to be healthy and you can play your game. You can play your game plan. And there's really so much more to talk about there, but I think this was a pretty good episode that touched on a really basic concepts.
I think there's some really concrete, healthy, easy things that people can do to be better prepared during their travel. Avoid getting sick, not just avoid getting sick, but also play better.
Yeah, and I think if anyone has any other questions or things that they want to hear about travel, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know on Twitter. Let us know in the comments. Just let us know. We're here to help the community, and we want to just provide as much information, as much HP for you guys as possible to stay healthy, to be and allow you to do what you want to do, which is just game, play more and hurt less.
Yeah, if there's something you want to learn, tell us so we can help you play more, hurt less.
So again, we'll leave everything that we talked about, all the small things, in the show notes. You guys can reference that, where to get the light box, where to get melatonin, all some of the research things that we mentioned. And again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys listening to us, and look out for the next episode, where we'll probably talk about maybe some gratitude, or maybe some other awesome things. But regardless,
Yeah.
you should tune in.
Yep.
Thank you guys
All
so
right.
much.
See you soon.